World War II was the deadliest conflict in human history, a war that engulfed every continent, shattered empires, and redrew the map of the modern world. It was a struggle between democracy and dictatorship, freedom and tyranny, a clash of ideologies where more than 70 million lives were lost. To understand this colossal conflict, we must trace its roots, its battles, and its consequences, beginning in the ashes of the First World War. The story of World War II begins not in 1939, but in 1919. The Treaty of Versailles ended World War I, but it left Germany humiliated, crushed by reparations, stripped of territory, and burdened by blame. The Weimar Republic became a fragile state. Economic collapse and political instability opened the door for extremists, and no one seized that opportunity more effectively than Adolf Hitler and his Nazi Party. Promising to restore Germany's pride and power, Hitler rose to chancellor in 1933, transforming the nation into a fascist dictatorship. Meanwhile, far to the east, another empire was expanding. Japan, fueled by nationalism and a hunger for resources, invaded Manchuria in 1931 and launched a full-scale war against China in 1937. Italy, under Benito Mussolini, pursued its own imperial ambitions in Africa. By the late 1930s, the world stood on the brink of another great war. The spark came on September 1, 1939, when Hitler's armies invaded Poland. Blitzkrieg lightning war was unleashed with tanks, aircraft, and mechanized infantry striking with unprecedented speed. Just 2 days later, Britain and France declared war on Germany. World War II had begun. In the opening months, Nazi Germany seemed unstoppable. Denmark and Norway fell in April 1940, securing Hitler's control of the North Sea. In May, the Wehrmacht stormed into Belgium, the Netherlands, and France. The French army, once thought to be the strongest in Europe, collapsed in just 6 weeks. By June, Paris was occupied, and Britain stood alone against the Nazi war machine. Then came the Battle of Britain. In the summer of 1940, the Luftwaffe launched a massive aerial campaign to destroy the Royal Air Force and pave the way for invasion. 4 months, bombs rained down on British cities in what became known as the Blitz. But the resilience of the British people, combined with radar technology and the bravery of RAF pilots, turned the tide. For the first time, Hitler was stopped. While Europe burned, the war expanded. In 1941, Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, the largest military invasion in history, sending over 3 million troops into the Soviet Union. At first, the Germans advanced rapidly, capturing vast territories, but the brutality of the Eastern Front, the Russian winter, and fierce Soviet resistance turned the campaign into a war of attrition. By December, German forces stalled at the gates of Moscow. That same month, the war transformed into a truly global conflict. On December 7, 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, striking the American Pacific Fleet, a date which will live in infamy, declared U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt. The United States entered the war, joining Britain, China, and the Soviet Union in the Grand Alliance. Now the world was divided into 2 camps, the Axis powers, Germany, Italy, and Japan against the Allied powers. The battles raged across Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Pacific. In North Africa, German General Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox, led the Afrika Korps in a campaign of maneuver warfare. Yet Allied forces under General Bernard Montgomery halted the Axis at El Alamein in late 1942, marking a turning point. In the Pacific, Japan advanced rapidly, seizing territories from the Philippines to Burma. But in June 1942, at the Battle of Midway, the United States struck a decisive blow, sinking 4 Japanese aircraft carriers and shifting the balance of naval power. The Eastern Front, however, remained the bloodiest theater. In 1942, Hitler launched a new offensive toward the city of Stalingrad. The battle descended into brutal urban combat, fought street by street, house by house. In February 1943, the German Sixth Army surrendered, marking Hitler's greatest defeat. From that moment, the Soviet Red Army began pushing westward. By 1943, the Axis powers were on the defensive. Italy collapsed after the Allies invaded Sicily and landed at Salerno. Mussolini was overthrown, though German troops fought fiercely to maintain control of Italy for another year. The Allies prepared for the liberation of Western Europe. On June 6, 1944, D-Day, the largest amphibious invasion in history, stormed the beaches of Normandy. American, British, and Canadian forces established a foothold. And within weeks, France began to rise against its occupiers. By August, Paris was liberated. Meanwhile, the Soviets launched massive offensives on the Eastern Front, crushing German forces and advancing relentlessly toward Berlin. Hitler's empire was collapsing from both sides. Yet the war was not over. In December 1944, Hitler gambled everything in the Ardennes, launching the Battle of the Bulge. For weeks, the Allies were caught off guard, but they recovered and pushed the Germans back. By early 1945, Allied armies crossed the Rhine, while the Soviets closed in from the east. On April 30, 1945, Adolf Hitler took his own life in a Berlin bunker as Soviet troops stormed the city. A week later, Germany surrendered unconditionally. In Europe, the war was over. But in the Pacific, the conflict raged on. Japan's forces fought ferociously in battles like Iwo Jima and Okinawa, showing no signs of surrender. To avoid a costly invasion, the United States made a fateful decision. In August 1945, atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, unleashing destruction unlike anything the world had ever seen. On September 2, 1945, Japan surrendered, and World War II came to an end. The cost was staggering: more than 70 million dead, cities in ruins, and entire populations displaced. Yet from the wreckage, a new world order emerged. The United Nations was founded. The United States and Soviet Union rose as superpowers, and the Cold War began. World War II was more than just battles and leaders. It was a conflict that reshaped humanity, defined the 20th century, and continues to shape our world today. Its legacy remains a warning and a reminder of the price of unchecked ambition, hatred, and war.